Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Squid Game Season 2 Episode 5. It's called One More Game. So spoilers for the episode as always. This was a longer episode. In fact, it was so long that when I just finished the episode like 10 minutes ago, and I was just thinking about, I kind of recap the episode a little bit in my head after I've watched one and think about what I've got to say and what particular scenes I want to call out and moments that I want to bring up. And I had like a realization that I'd kind of almost forgotten the first like 20 minutes of the episode. Not because they were bad or not memorable, just because the episode had been on so long that the end of the previous game, all the mini games around the circle, felt like a lifetime ago. It felt so long ago that it didn't feel like it was in this episode. Which I don't even think I'm complaining necessarily, because I liked the vast majority of this episode. I don't think this episode felt like it had the pacing issues that the last one did, with the two teams on the boats in the outside world. I think they had one scene in this episode. It was straight to the point. It was just, hey, they're going back out to look. They know they've got a limited number of days to find the island, and they're on the case. That's it. Nice and simple, short and sweet. Off you go. And then just to get something else out of the way that's kind of separate from everything else is in Nuyil, number 11. She gets attacked in her room. This scene was very reminiscent of like a prisoner movie. You know, like when like guards will let prisoners into a room to like beat up another prisoner. This is what this felt like to me. This was like two other pink tracksuits come in, pin her down, get very threatening, say, why do you keep effing with us? You could just, stay out the way, but you're actively getting in the way of us doing what we're trying to do. And they get kind of, threatening, like threaten, not only cutting off her fingers, but threaten sexual stuff as well. And it gets very, very intimidating. And that's basically the scene by and large. We see that someone working the cameras, like, sort of switches to an old feed so that no one knows that this is happening. I think the thing that stuck out to me most about this was kind of the uncertainty of what Nuyil is going to do now. Because on the one hand, obviously she's sort of pinned into a corner and she's been threatened that if she does keep shooting people in the head, if she keeps getting in the way of the organ farming business, that she's going to be killed. And so obviously I think she's an interesting character for us, the audience, because we inherently understand her better or know her better than the other characters. And even though she's been killing the players, she's been doing it in a way that's very like by the book and like very much like following the rules that she's been given. So we oddly, I think, can empathize with her and at least see that she is playing very straight and that she doesn't letting others like corrupt the system. There's like a purity to the way she handles everything here that you can respect, even though she's part of technically the villainous side of the whole operation. And I felt like at the end of this episode, when they were getting ready for the next game, and we saw her suiting up, and she had that little moment looking in the mirror, she puts on her mask, and she grabs her gun, and then she just sort of blends into the row of triangle faces as they're going off to do the next thing. I genuinely get felt with a little sense of excitement of like, oh, I think she's going to do something. If there's one thing I feel like I've learned about this character is that she's not just going to be scared and hide and just do what she's told. I feel like she's probably thought of something that she's going to do. Whether that's like somehow implicate some of these other people, right? I think at one point when she was pinned down, they said, who are you going to go talk to, the officer? So I guess that's what we're going to call the black tracksuit character from last episode. I guess he's the officer. Yeah, obviously she can't just go to the higher up because he's involved in it, right? And the front man, who's seemingly the highest of the high up right now, is in the game. He's away from all of this. So I do wonder if she's going to try and like think of a justifiable way to kill these other pink tracksuits, like some way that wouldn't be betraying the rules, but gets them off her back, or something, or perhaps something even more extreme. Maybe she'll start to rebel against the games, but that doesn't strike me as something that she would do. It feels like she wouldn't like ruin the games themselves to succeed in her own thing. I feel like she would want to maintain the games at least as best she can, while she deals with this. But I do think it actually got me a little excited to see what she was going to do. She's been definitely one of the interesting additions to the characters this season. But that's the separate stuff. I mean, everything else was the characters in the game, and there's a lot of like standout little moments and scenes throughout this episode. Obviously, the bookending of like the end of the last games, and then I won't even call it the start of the next games. It's really just the explanation of the rules. We see the room, but just as they're starting to play, that's when we cut to the cliffhanger. So they're very fond of that this season, of cutting to the credits when they've just introduced the games. My continued critique of weird song choices during some of the games is going to be maintaining here. There's definitely a couple of weird tracks during the whole Rainbow minigames, the Mario Party, if I will. That said, though, there was one song choice that I thought was alright. And it was probably my favourite moment of the whole Mario Party style games, is it was when we got to the last two teams, and that's where Gi-hun's team is playing. They basically start playing, and they're doing very well, where first attempt at flipping the envelope, success. First attempt at the rock throwing, success. Rock throwing, success. And then first attempt at the dice-like thing where they're throwing the dice up and down, success. And the entire time, this upbeat kind of rock song is playing. Honestly, actually, between the first and the second game, they did this oneer following them around the circle. And part of me thought, wait, are they going to be really ballsy? And like, if they'd done this in the whole thing in a oneer, which would be very impressive, particularly for the dice one, because I feel like that would take a lot of attempts, even if you knew how to do it and were good at it. But it wasn't. Once they got to the dice, that's when they started cutting to other shots, and that's fine. But it gave it this sense of energy, this sense of, oh, we can do no wrong. We're on top of the world. We've seen other people complete this. We've had enough time to prepare. Things are going great. And then it gets to the spinning top one, and it's number one, right? It's the front man who's doing that one, and he basically starts to throw it, right? Not obviously he's meant to throw it to spin it in the game. What I mean is he starts to throw the game. He starts to intentionally lose and do terribly because they're doing so well. They've got so much time left in the timer that there's no stress at this point. And it's as soon as he goes to do it for the first time and it just completely fails, that's when the track just cuts away. And then the second time he tries it, he does it so badly that he throws the spinning top behind them, and they have to jump all the way back to get it and then go back. And like they get to the point where there's only 30 seconds left by the time he does it. The music kicks in again. I did think that track choice was quite inspired, particularly the way that it cut out and then came back when the momentum was back on again. And that sense of momentum in that last go round was quite good. I especially also enjoyed the fact that the front man kind of saved Gi-hun right at the end, because Gi-hun's doing the last game, which is like basically just keepy ups, but with like, instead of a ball, it's like a pom-pom, like a little pom-pom, and he's just kicking this thing up, and you have to kick it up 5 times. He kicks it too far away in the 4th, but it's actually the front man who's chained to him who puts his leg out and makes sure that Gi-hun's foot touches it before it hits the floor. It feels a bit questionable to me if that should count, which did make me wonder, do all of the tracksuits know who this is? Do the pink tracksuits know that number one is their boss and that he is, I would assume, immune from what's going on? I don't know. I'm curious, but it's a question worth thinking about. So that was that. Obviously, to go back to the start of the episode, which was not the first time they played a round, that was the last episode, but the first round of this in this episode was the team of the mother and the son, and I'm forgetting her name, Hyunju, right? Hyunju, probably Hyunju. That sounds right. And they're playing, and this was obviously suspenseful. They did a lot of things here where it doesn't go smoothly, right? There are some failed attempts. They're not quite sure. The religious lady starts to kind of freak out at the spinning top game as well, and can't quite do it. And it actually ends up being Hyunju who slaps her and says, "Hey, if you just give up, I'll kill you before like they get a chance to." Right? She basically tries to, and I will point out though that this didn't come across as like like a villainous thing. This wasn't like, because we've had villainous characters in season 1 and even some characters in this season who are menacing and try to scare people into doing things because it'll affect them and because they want to, stay in the games, they want to win the games, whatever. This didn't feel like that. This felt like Hyunju was giving this woman exactly what she needed to progress. That this woman needed to be slapped back into reality. She was hysterical. So it felt like the threat was a very, very strategical choice as opposed to just Hyunju going to her first instinct, right? Or her first, her natural anger or whatever you want to call it. Though we do find out later, though, she was a soldier before, though. So maybe that's where some of this, team leading leadership comes from, because all throughout the game she's giving little pep talks and motivating the others and getting them to focus on what they're doing, and it kind of works. And so sometimes the old lady, she needed to not be spoken to, right? But this needed to be different. And then the big thing at the end when she's doing the pom-pom one with the kicks is she asks that everyone not look, to turn around because she's self-conscious. And her team do, and much to my surprise, everyone in the circle of their side of this all turn around as well. It was actually kind of a sweet moment that everyone turned around, and it went well. First attempt, they got over the finish line just in time. As we see during the montage after, even if you finish all 5 games, if you don't get to that finish line in time, you'll still get shot. What's interesting, though, is that the mood and the tone at the end of this round where this team finally get to the finish line was so positive and upbeat and happy. What I thought was about to happen is that, yes, they're going to succeed. I thought they were going to succeed because there's too many known important characters on this team. But when they cross the finish line, and they're all so happy, they're hugging, they're jumping, they're cheering, the entire group in the circle's all clapping along, what I thought was about to happen, because they did not focus almost at all on the other team that was playing at the same time, because there's 2 circles. There was always 2 teams play at the same time. In fact, one of the questions I had in the last episode was, is it a race between the teams? Like, if one finishes, does the other team automatically lose because they didn't win? That turns out not to be the case. Because what I thought was going to happen here is that they were so happy that they were going to hear gunshots and it was the other team being killed for losing, right? Or not making it in time. I genuinely thought that was going to snap them all back to reality. And what's funny about that is that they do that, just not at the end of this round, because when they go to the wide shot, the other team on the other circle's also celebrating, so they clearly have also passed. Both teams passed at the same times. But what I just described is exactly how the final one ends. When Gi-hun's team succeeds and they're all happy, you hear gunshots, the other team all get shot, and it snaps Gi-hun and the rest of them all back to reality, and the horror of what this is. Like, oh no, we got caught up in it, we got really excited, but yeah, I thought that was it was good. It was a little bit predictable in a sense, because I was thinking it was going to happen earlier, and then it happened at the end of it. But that's not really a complaint, because I think it was an effective thing to do, is to have them get caught up in the moment, have them cherish the victory, only to realize, oh, but this is actually still very horrific what's happening here. Just because we happen to win doesn't take away from what's going on. And I guess just not to gloss over the whole front man throwing the game a little bit. And I was genuinely not sure where that was going in the moment as it was playing out. I was like, wait, does he actually want to make them lose? Is he going to as much as I predicted that Gi-hun wouldn't find out who this is till the end of season 2, maybe, I don't know, maybe he's going to intentionally have them all lose, but because they're the last team, no one's going to know they've all lost. And maybe he'll reveal who he is and say, you're going back in, you're not eliminated, I want you all to know who I am. Or so, I didn't know what he was going to do with it. I didn't know what direction it would take at that point. It felt like he was sabotaging the game so much that I wasn't sure if they were actually going to finish it. And they end up doing it in the nick of time, which makes it feel like he just wanted to make Gi-hun sweat and make Gi-hun have the chance of losing. Because if Gi-hun had multiple attempts at the pom-pom thing, because he didn't have time to, but if he did have time to, he probably would have been fine. So, no, it was an interesting moment, and definitely was playing with my head in terms of, okay, what are his intentions here? What's his motivations? And sort of seeing how some of these other moments play out as it goes on. So, there's no way I'm going to hit everything that happens like in between the two games, because there's so many little conversations between different characters. There's no way I'm going to hit all of them. I think the big broad points, of course, is that the money does go up. Although, even before they get shown what the money is, some of the asshole characters are already complaining that there's too many survivors. And that's the thing that they've not really talked about too much. Like, they keep saying, hey, there'll be more money after this round, but no one seems to, like, say out loud at least that means that the only way the money actually goes up is that if some people die, right? If everyone makes it through, if every single person playing round 2 actually passed, the money would be the exact same. The only way it goes up is for people to die. And it's kind of like this big pink elephant in the room that no one's actually saying out loud. The closest anyone gets at one point is when Thanos is going to the crypto guy and threatening them in the bathroom and says, hey, you have to get to the end and win the 45 billion, otherwise you won't have enough to pay me back. Or 4.5, whatever the number is. I'm forgetting what the decimal point is. And he says, are you an idiot? The only way I would win everything, the only way I would win every penny of the prize money is if you died. And kind of calls him out for being an idiot. And it does kind of feel like people aren't really talking about the fact that the money only goes up if a portion of people die. Now, I'm not saying they don't know that. I'm not saying that a lot of them aren't thinking about it. All of them are probably thinking about it. But no one's saying that when they're bringing up their arguments. You know, when they have their other vote in this episode, people aren't actually bringing that point directly up. They're talking around it for the most part. So I thought that was an interesting thing. But yeah, obviously with the vote, some people switch sides, some people don't. And in some cases, they're surprising. I mean, what am I trying to say here? So some people who were no's before become yeses, and some people who were yeses become no's. And some of them make complete sense, and some of them are a little bit of a surprise. Some of them are kind of coerced into it. You know, there's that one guy that's kind of getting bullied by Thanos and his henchmen, who gets talked into it, or I say talked, threatened, basically. So you've got that. What's interesting is that when Gi-hun tries to speak up to talk to everyone when the vote starts, and it's actually the son of the mother-son duo who's the first person to vote no on this round. When Gi-hun tries to talk to everyone, it's actually the front man who kind of jumps in and does the speech. He is now switched to a no, or to a leave, if you will, and tries to talk to them and say, hey, we have to go. People are dying here. Enough is enough. You know, it's 70 million each now. Let's just go. Let's just get out of here. And a lot of the assholes, the older guy and whatnot, are like, hey, let's just do one more game. And that's the title of the episode, is One More Game. And it's this idea of that ever-ending carrot on the stick. So even though he says one more, the greed, the idea that, oh, just one more round will, you know, triple the prize money again, probably, based on what's already happened from round 1 to round 2. That does anyone really believe that they'll actually want to go next time? In fact, Jun-bi, if I'm remembering that name correctly, that's Gi-hun's friend, who I think was Jun-bi, I think, because they all announced their names in this episode. He's one of the ones that switches to a stay. He was a leave originally, and he switched to a circle. Yeah, I'll say X and circle, since that's what they actually use in the visuals of the show. But he switches to a circle, and he actually, there's a great little scene actually where they're having their dinner, or whatever they is constituting as dinner in this place, and he's sitting on his own away from the group, and they go over, it's actually the soldier boy, who I believe is Dae-ho, is his name, but he goes over and says, what are you doing over here on your own? Come and sit with us. And he's clearly like ashamed. He doesn't want to sit with the rest of them because they all voted to leave. They're all X's, and he's a circle. But he's like, no, you're still with us. Don't be silly. Like, you know, and he tries to apologize, and he's like, look, you know, I have X number of debts. If it gets up to this amount, like, it'll cover everything. And like, you know, he basically tries to justify why he feels pressured into like needing that money. Same with the son of the mother-son duo. Like, you know, there's legitimate reasons. Then the other character, of course, is Hyun-ju, who. This one particularly like hit hard because like the little group with the mother, son, and then the girl who, forgive me, I don't know her name, but there's the sort of the younger scared girl who's with that team. who was very scared during the earlier game, and they're all talking about what they're going to do when they get out of here. And the mother says, "Hey, why don't you come to our place for dinner? I'll make you guys dinner." And it's kind of sweet, right? And there's a lot of like good little moments with this group of characters actually in this episode, particularly with Hyunju and like the mother asking her questions about herself and her better transition, and at first not, her not wanting to really talk about it at first, but being a bit more open about it as time goes on. Having the mother and her bond, because the very first time that this was ever brought up, the subject of her identity was ever raised, was the mother asking her son kind of awkwardly, slightly inappropriately even, like who she is and what's going on. And to have her be accepting of her was actually very sweet in this episode, and then repeatedly throughout the episode does lots of little things to kind of back her up. And something as simple as like, yes, she's coming to the bathroom with us because she's a grown woman, and she says that phrase a couple of times in this episode. I thought all those moments were actually very sweet. I thought that friendship blossoming was kind of nice. And then the younger girl being scared and thanking Hyunju for getting her through and like giving her the advice about flipping the card and all that. She's like, "Hey, I'm ready to go home." And they all agree they're ready to go home, but the son votes, X, and then so does Hyunju. And later on, or actually not even later on, during the vote, right after Hyunju has voted to stay and play more games, that younger girl starts crying and begging and saying, "I just want to go home. I'm scared. I don't want to die here." And it's really raw. And there's a moment where, she looks over at Hyunju, and Hyunju looks over, looking just ashamed of this, ashamed of the choice and the disappointment that she's just caused. And it's a really good little hard-hitting moment. It's probably some of the best stuff in this episode, actually, is kind of this. And honestly, I hate to say it, but this younger character, she is a goner. She is so dead in this next game. And I say that because when they're on their way to the game towards the end, Hyunju tries to talk to her again, and she kind of like forgives her effectively and says, "Hey, it's okay, but when we get out here after this next game, we'll still go and have that dinner, right?" And Hyunju smiles and says, "Yes. I'm sorry, but that means she is dead. That young character is not making it out of this next game, right? That's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to hurt us all. It's going to cause guilt for Hyunju because it's going to add even more weight to that idea that she voted to stay when this girl was begging not to, and then she dies in the next game. It's too dramatically potent to not do it. So she is so dead. Anyway, but like all these moments were, I think, were really good. Particularly when Hyunju started talking about moving to Thailand, and the son being like, "Yeah, there's lots of different people in Thailand," and starts talking about how beautiful they are. And then the mum even makes a joke about, "I wouldn't call you beautiful, but you're not too bad on the eyes." And I think that's after the young girl says that Hyunju is beautiful. And it's kind of a sweet little scene. Again, it's just kind of developing all these friendships. And, part of me internally is thinking, oh, that's because we're about to break everyone's hearts and have half of these characters die in the next game. So I thought all of those moments were very good. They were very well acted. They were legitimately very sweet. And I think it did a really good job of building out and fleshing out the characters that we're focusing on, but even more so, like fleshing out some of the characters that are not quite as important, like the younger character, who I'm now a little bit attached to, and I'm going to feel bad. Ultimately, her purpose is to serve Hyunju's character, but like I actually think I'm going to feel quite bad now when she dies, which I'm sure she is. And then likewise, on the other side of things, you've got that younger guy who's been bullied by Thanos and that, and then the girl who's with that group. And she's basically trying to give him advice and say, look, these guys are idiots, they're losers. I'm only with them so I can manipulate them, but don't fall into their ways of thinking. Don't do drugs like them. It'll just mess you up, right? Like, I feel like I can trust you. Let's just try and get out of here. This is the last. And she's also saying just one more game. I feel like everyone except the ultra villainous people who said, oh, just one more game and then I'll leave, I feel like a lot of them are probably going to die next game. Not all of them, but most of them. Because the irony of that is just too good to pass up, I think. So, yeah, and, Gi-hun's friend, Jun-bi, like, he has a heart-to-heart with him. I mean, Gi-hun has a whole thing here this episode where he remembers that night in season 1 where everyone tried to kill each other in the middle of the night. Now, the players in this game haven't realized that that would add to the prize money, so it seems to not actually be that much of a threat, but Gi-hun's got, trauma from it, so he's like, no, we're going to guard, I'll take the first watch, and we'll all cover each other. I think the performance in this scene was really good, where, let me just get his name here, Lee Jung-jae, who plays Gi-hun, I thought he did a great job in this scene, because his friend starts reminiscing about some of their tough times together, and apologizing again for the vote, and apologizing for, what happened to his mother in season 1 and all that. Talks about them going on strike, which I do vaguely remember that. I think we got flashbacks to some of that last season, now that he's brought it up. But, they start talking, and eventually Gi-hun, starts, getting a little, annoyed by the things that he's saying in, sort of playful way, and starts, complaining. And his friend is like, there he is, there's the real Gi-hun. I thought you were gone because you were so different, but you're still really in there. And I thought it was such a great little bit of acting, because actually, to me, the viewer, I felt like I was recognizing Gi-hun from the start of season 1. The way he was saying things, the way he was getting kind of hyperactive, and like he's been accused of something, being like, what, me? No? The way he kind of just carried himself and changed over the course of the conversation. It really felt like he was becoming season 1 Gi-hun again. Before everything got really traumatic, obviously. And it was kind of a nice little thing, which again makes me think his friend's probably a goner in this next game. I mean, admittedly, everyone I'm saying is a goner next game, probably all can't die next game, but some of them are going to die. And the end of the scene reveals that the front man is listening to this conversation and is smiling. I think in some level he wants to get to know Gi-hun. I mean, I think that's maybe the reason entirely that he's in the game, is he wants to understand what Gi-hun's intentions are. And, the other big thing about this conversation is Gi-hun is starting to doubt, can he make any real change here? Can he make a difference? And I think seeing the votes go the way they do, and this second vote, I didn't even mention it, they vote to keep playing, and it's not even as close. It's not like a landslide by any means, but there's a good 30 votes between, the winner result and the losing result. So his morale is just plummeted. He feels like this is, the other ideology is winning, and he can't quite do anything to change it, and he feels like he's being defeated. And obviously, I think we as the audience hope that in the end he can save more than just himself this time. That there can be more of a happy ending where a bunch of these characters get to survive. And speaking of people having moments, Jun-hee has a breakdown as well. There's a whole funny bit where the mother character has to argue with the guard to let them go to the bathroom during the night, but yeah, she just breaks down in the bathroom and says she's scared, and the mother has to hug her and sort of try and reassure her. And again, it's there's kind of bonds forming with different characters that are quite good here. There's little moments where the crypto guy notices that she survived and clearly is cared about the fact that she survived, but is still not coming up to her. He's still having problems with Thanos, like I said, the whole threat that didn't make much sense earlier. So there's a lot of character stuff this episode. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it, especially right after the vote, but even more so when they're having dinner and kind of planning for the next games. And they're all talking, because one of the things that they're all saying when they're like, hey, it's not so bad, we worked well as a team, we'll work well as a team again, and we'll get through the next one. And Gi-hun obviously drops the bombshell where he's like, what if the next game requires us to kill each other? Because that happened. That was the marbles game in season 1. They split into pairs. Oh, one of you has to die, and it's up to you to. It's not just a yes and no, but you have to play the game and kill the other person effectively. So this next game seems like it's kind of going to be in that sort of vein, where if I understood the rules at the end correctly, and if I don't, it's not a big deal because I'm sure I'll get them as I'm watching the game play out next episode. We didn't get to see an example of it being played, but it sounds like they're on this big spinny thing. It's like a carousel that's not got anything on it, big turntable. And when it stops spinning, a number is yelled out, and they have to form groups of that size. And it sounds like one of the concerns is that what if oh, like we need to go into fours, but our little team's normally a five. Like, what do we do then? We have to get someone else to make up. Or we need, if there's maybe threes, or there's five of us, we need to find a sixth person to be the final part of the second three kind of thing. And it sounds like anyone who's left without partners of the right amount, they also have to go behind doors in these teams as well. So I'm not sure how that's going to work exactly, that part of it. But again, I'm sure it'll make complete sense when I'm watching the game play out. I only heard the explanation quickly before the end of the episode. But it does sound like something where we're going to be forcing characters into situations where they have to like make a choice to leave someone out, because it's either, one person's going to die and they have to pick who's going to be in the group with them. Maybe someone will sort of sacrifice themselves to let someone else join a group. Like, there's definitely potential here in what they can do with this game next episode. So yeah, I think the thing that sticks out to me most about this particular episode, though, other than just the furthering along of like, oh no, the greed's getting to them, too many of the characters. It feels more hopeless than ever for Gi-hun to actually change hearts and minds. But it was the little character moments between various pairs of characters, or even just various groups of characters. I think a lot of characters had like good development in this episode. Where, and when I say development, all I really mean in this case is that they had good moments where they made me care about them a little bit more. So it's going to hurt more when they are killed in the forthcoming games. I'm sure some of them will make it, but some of them definitely will not. So yeah, I think Hyun-joo probably got the lion's share of the most hard hitting scenes and some of the better performance scenes of this episode. Which is cool, both in how she was played in the games themselves as being sort of an instructor and a leader, but then kind of opening up to the mother character. And the mother is like, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the mother-son combo, but the mother especially, I feel like because of her growth with multiple other characters, with her, with Jun-hee, and helping her with the pregnancy and looking out for her and all that kind of stuff. And we see more people give Jun-hee some, like, hey, I don't need, I don't drink milk. Here, have this milk. Hey, you can have my bread. Like there's people offering her things to help her out. And it's that sense of like community and like helping each other that it feels like that's the Gi-hun side of the ideology that we're hoping for, is kindness and not greed to win out. But it's so easy to manipulate all these people who are in debt to think the only way out of this is to, shortcut your way to having the money to pay these things off, because the system says you owe these things. Now, admittedly, some of them, it's not just the system. Like, the son character owes money to, like, illegal gambling, like, loan sharks or whatever. Like, so it's not even like they're all inside the system, necessarily. But yeah, so yeah, and honestly, I kind of glossed over it a little bit, but I do think the younger women breaking down and begging to go home during the vote was especially quite powerful, I thought, because other people were ignoring her. And it's kind of that thing where this, again, to go back to what I was saying last episode about how, the red and blue, it mirrors a lot of real world elections. It kind of felt like all of the other side had to just ignore the pleads of this innocent young woman because they want something regardless of what it does to her. And this game literally is going to result in the death of a lot of these characters. That's the whole thing. We only succeed and get more money here if other people lose and die. Because kind of like a lot of capitalism, the people who get to the top usually only get to the top if other people suffer as a result, because they're at the bottom of the food chain. This show is making it really kind of like, the forefront of it and making it really simple to see that play out. So no, I think it's still really good. I think, like, is it as amazing as season one in that sense of discovering all this for the first time? No, it probably isn't, right? And I suspect that the cliffhanger at the end of episode 7 is going to definitely be nowhere near as satisfying as actually getting a conclusion like season 1 had. But I think the way they're still continuing to play with it and manipulate it and do different things with all of the ideas, I still think has been really captivating, particularly once we got to the games themselves. And these last 3 episodes have been particularly great. Some pacing issues in the last one a little bit, and whatever, some minor things, but I don't think it's went off a cliff like some people seem to think. Like I've seen people online say the magic is completely gone. This pales in comparison. It's like, oh, they should have never touched the show again after season 1. It was a stupid idea. And I mean, unless it does something that really pisses me off in the last 2 episodes, I really don't think I'm going to feel that way. But hey, we'll see, won't we? So that is the episode. Let me know what you thought of this one in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, you can support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble, particularly bonuses for the movie channel, MailFuzz Movies, where all the movie podcasts live. Go check out those if you haven't. But thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?